Moses himself in the Torah expresses a wish that all of Israel would be prophets, so they don't go looking to him for the wisdom of our lives. And then we are humble enough to say, far be it from us that we are prophets. But sometimes, especially if we read the Torah enough and just live life enough, we can have those glimmers of aha moments that perhaps we could call prophecy, at least personal for us, where we finally sort of click in how it is we're supposed to live in this complicated world. So take a moment to think about in your life when those aha moments, where things might have clicked a little bit more. And you know you've had them when you remember them years later. So one of those aha moments for me was during rabbinical school. I guess that makes sense. Living in my home area, the Upper West Side, returning to it after college, and feeling all nice and that the Judaism that I am living is the right kind of Judaism. Egalitarian, observant, enlightened, accepting of modernity. And into my visual picture, perhaps as I'm thinking of this, into the lobby of my apartment building, is standing a Haredi man, dressed how you would imagine a Haredi man to be dressed. All in black, long coat, a hat, a flowing beard. And I caught myself feeling hatred toward this man. Don't know him, but every single generalization that I had in my mind of what a Haredi is, old-fashioned, against women, imposing their views on me, won't even see me and my colleagues as rabbis. Some of them might even question counting us as legitimate Jews. And so this hatred didn't come pouring out. I didn't do anything, but it came pouring into my consciousness. And I caught myself. And yes, I went after there to the Holocaust and inserted me and this unnamed man to a line at a concentration camp or a selection line, and recognized that if he and I had been in a selection line, it would have been us chosen, not any of the non-Jews around me who I perhaps felt more of a kinship. After that moment, I vowed to myself to try, knowing I was going to fail sometimes, to really make sure to not have hatred for others, especially my fellow Jews, in my heart. And I have shared from this very pulpit that when people ask about the Haredim, why are they not fighting in the army? Like, why do they not count us as Jews and things like that? And I say, and I've this from experience talking to congregants, they're our cousins, they're our family members, and they are also Jews. And if we think about it, we actually have more in common with them. It's just that it's in our instincts to always look towards the people that are very like us, perhaps even family, and different enough that we focus on those differences. That is where the hatred can creep in. We are in a moment where Jewish unity is a must, where we have discovered that it doesn't matter what the Jewish person believes, that we are being put into one bucket as Jews. And as Yossi Klein Halevi has been teaching and others, basically anti-Semitism is when they take what is hateable at the moment and impose it onto the Jews. The Jews were communists in Nazi Germany. The Jews were capitalists in Soviet Russia. And today, the Jews are the ones committing genocide and imposing apartheid and are colonialists. Notice all that these are things that wasn't used for Jews until it became the hatred du jour. So I ask us to think about, really for us, what is the purpose of hatred? What is the purpose of hating Haredim, hating Jews that don't believe like you? And yes, even using hatred for enemies. Doesn't mean that we don't fight, but it shows us that hatred really corrupts us. Last week in the Havarah service was May 4th, Star Wars Day, and I talked about how I use with my students the teaching of Star Wars. Now, I know it's not Jewish teaching, but it's humanistic. Whereas the dark side in the Star Wars Force comes from when hatred and anger fester inside of us and turns us from a good person into an evil person. The good side still has weapons. The good side still uses the Force to fight. But they do so with a love for the people that they are defending, not for a hatred for who they are fighting against. And we just have to make sure in this world right now, whether we are fighting with weapons using our IDF or on campuses or in our just discourse, that we are in dialogue and are sure of the love that we have for Judaism, the love that we have for others, and I'll say the least the non-hatred. There are going to be people that have hatred for us. We don't have to love them like we love someone who agrees with us, but we can't just have this visceral hatred. If we are able, as the Torah says, Hochiach tochiach et amitecha, rebuke your neighbor, but don't incur guilt. That means to say, no, we are not genocidal. We are fighting an enemy that refuses to give up, that knows how to use the media to make us look bad. Even at this very moment, Israel is warning the civilians of Rafah that they need to move out of the way. I know it's not an easy thing for them to move. I know that Hamas is blocking the aid that is coming to them. But we just need to hold our head up high and say that. No, it's going to take a long time for people who hate us to hear what we have to say. But I've been saying this all along, and perhaps this was part of my aha moment, is that we cannot focus on the big picture for ourselves. Sometimes we just got to do what we can, because otherwise we will fall into despair. So if we, as Israelis, as Jews, can hold up our head up high and say, we are doing what we can, we have taken as much hate as we can, or will continue to take as much hate as we can out of our hearts, as the Torah teaches us, then eventually, the rest of the world will discover that. I think too many of our young people have fallen into what I call, someone said, well, don't call it messianic trap, but I'm going to call it that we really thought we were living in a world where there would be less borders, less distinguishments between our group, and we really could love every human being as we love ourselves. And yet, there is still too much hate in this world. there are still too many people who hate. So until we get to that, we got to perhaps circle the wagons a little bit. Focus in on our Jewish community. Show our love. And yes, recommit ourselves to what Israel has been about, the Israel that I was taught about, which is to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nations. We know that the light is there. We know that the good side is there. And God willing, the rest of the world will discover that soon. Shabbat Shalom.